Alright, hey guys, let's say we make some coffee. How about that? In my last video, I covered my gear and the AeroPress and my particular method for using it. But in this video, I'm just going to cover this little baby here, the Chemex. So if you want to see my gear, if you want to see AeroPress stuff, check out the other video. Link is somewhere. Let's get started talking about this little sucker. This is a glass, beautiful glass. It's actually really very simple. It's a pour-over machine, basically. It's not even a machine. It's just a container. It is for making pour-overs. Pour-overs are very different from AeroPress style brews. Presses will put the coffee in, put water in, push it out, and then you're done. A pour-over is closer to a drip machine, for example, where coffee sits somewhere and water continuously goes through it. It's much better than a drip machine, though. That's the really nice thing about it. With a pour-over, you have so much more control over what grinds where, get exposed to what water when, and at what temperature that occurs. First thing we're going to want to do is get this preheated. Luckily, I came a little bit more prepared today. I pre-ground and preheated the kettle, so we don't have to wait for that. This is also already preheated as well, but I'm going to pop it in here for the sake of show. It's also less preheated now than it was 20 seconds ago. And I have more to talk about, so I'm going to fill it up. You want to fill this up with hot water. You can use boiling water if you want to. I just use hot water out of the faucet. And again, you preheat this just like you preheat an AeroPress. That's for a couple of reasons. For an AeroPress, it's actually even a little bit more important because you're actually brewing in the vessel. Obviously, if the vessel is cold and you pour hot water in, the temperature of the water is going to drop, so you're not going to get that ideal temperature control that you really want. That is less true for a Chemex, so it's really more so that you're keeping the coffee at consistent temperature once it's out and into the reservoir, but it does have a slight impact up at the top. Speaking of the top, you're going to need one of these. These are Chemex filters. These are paper Chemex filters. They make metal filters for the Chemex as well, made by the same company as the AeroPress filter guys, Able. It's called the Kone with a K. I like it. I want one. They're expensive, so I've been using paper filters in the meantime. You have a couple of options, well, literally a couple, two, for paper filters for like Chemex brand ones. These are actual Chemex. These are super cheap. It's like one box of 100 for like $7 or $8. Super, super cheap. You can get either these, the bleached ones, or you can get the unbleached ones. Some people say you can taste the bleachiness or unbleachiness. Probably. I haven't tried the unbleached ones. But you are going to definitely lose oils when you're using paper filters either way. So I do want to get the metal one, and that is an option if that's something you're into. So, all right. Now that this is nice and hot, really good and hot, let's get this water out of here. And then we do the kind of annoying part. This filter is actually just one big square. Whoop. So we're just going to pop this open so that we have a cone. And one side is, you're going to see it's going to have 3 flaps. That side with 3 flaps, you're going to put that in towards the spout, just like so. And you're going to want to touch that to the edges so as to hopefully get it to stick. And then we're going to go ahead and run that same super hot water through this. We're going to want to do 2 things. Similarly to the AeroPress, we're going to want to make sure that the filter sticks. But we're also going to want to attempt to remove as much of that paper flavor as we possibly can. So while this is going through, this is a good opportunity to talk about the grind. We are already pre-ground, so I'm going to grab this. And you'll be able to see once we get closer to the coffee that it's much more coarse than we used for the AeroPress coffee. It's for a couple of reasons. AeroPress coffee is exposed very quickly. You want to get the water in, and you want to get the water out once it's become coffee as quickly as you possibly can. So, in order to facilitate that, you want a finer grind, which is going to mean more surface area, which means there's more of the coffee bean to come in contact with the water. Obviously, that's going to mean more exposure. It's also much easier to overexpose that way. So, methods that use finer grinds are a little bit easier to mess up. Something like this, we're going to be dumping a bunch of water through here. This is a 6-cup Chemex. It holds about 4 cups. I'm going to pour this out, which takes a little while. You can go ahead and just leave the filter in there. It'll stick to the Chemex. That's fine. What was I talking about? Yes, this is a. We're going to make like 4 cups of coffee in here. You can put more through there if you want to and actually get 6 cups out of it because it actually holds 6 cups, but I don't like to because I think that's 4 is kind of pushing the bounds of what you want to be putting in here. in terms of water and exposure. So you can overexpose it that way too. But for this, we're going to want a more coarse grind because that's going to give us less surface area, which means that it's okay for us to dump that much water in there. We're going to be exposing the grounds for much longer than we would in an AeroPress. So that means that it's better, and you're going to want a coarse grind. If you ever feel like experimenting, grab a fine grind and do this with a fine grind, and then taste it, and then spit it out because it's awful, because it's going to be completely overexposed, and you're going to get that nasty acrid quality that you don't want. So what we're going to do here, we're going to grab 40 grams of coarsely ground coffee. Each of these scoops is approximately 10 grams. Again, as I said in the other video, I'm not super sticklery on exact measurements. So I'm just going to dump the rest in here. All right, so now that we've gotten a little bit closer here, you can see what's going on here. This is the operating room, so to speak. What we've got here is we've got all the coarse grinds. And what I like to do is, because we're going to be dumping water into here, is I like to make a divot here. I like to make sure that all of this stuff goes up against the side. This is another reason why you want a coarse grind, not a fine grind, because a fine grind has a tendency to bunch together, and they'll stick to one another. So what that'll end up doing is clumping together towards the bottom and then severely slowing the drip out of the Chemex filter, which is bad, which means you're overexposing then, right? You're leaving the water in the coffee for far too long. Now, I like to make this divot because first thing we're going to do, which you're going to see right now, is we're going to bloom the coffee, just like we bloom in the AeroPress. This is 202 degrees Fahrenheit water in the Bonavita kettle, and we're just going to get as much of it wet as we can. And then we're going to stick that back on the base and keep it at that temperature. For a Chemex, you're going to want to brew somewhere around 200. Some people brew a little bit higher, a little bit lower, but that setting is fine for me. It keeps it at about 202. When you pull it off, it starts to drop just a smidge, but it'll do the job. What the bloom is doing here is similar to what it's doing in the AeroPress. We're actually just getting everything wet, getting it ready for the extraction. This soaks up some of the water. You'll see the grounds actually kind of like plump up. They look a little bit bigger. That's good. That's what you want to see. And then eventually, once we actually start doing the brew, what you're going to see is what we want is something similar to this once we're done. We're going to want to be able to see all these grinds sticking to the outside as much as possible, because that means they're no longer being exposed. That's no longer going through the filter. And we don't have any clogs there at the bottom. Great. Awesome. Now that we've bloomed, let's go ahead and grab this kettle again. And this is where the gooseneck comes into play. This is going to give you a lot of control. What we're going to do is we're going to pour some water into here. And then we're going to lighten up the flow. And then start pouring all around the edges. And we're going to try and pour at about the same pace as we see the water exiting at the bottom. Unfortunately, I cannot show that to you at the moment. But we're going to keep pouring in a ring, leaving the center fairly dry, because that's the last thing that's going to come out of the bottom, so that's the last thing we want to get wet. Now, before I started doing this, and I'm no expert, but I watched a bunch of videos and read a bunch of things, and this is where there's a little bit of room for exploration, so to speak. Everybody's got their own preferred methods. This should be exactly 1 Chemex worth of coffee, and then we're going to go ahead and wet that bottom, or that center spot right there. Perfect. I missed just a bit of it, you see. That's still a little bit of a dry island there, but you fill it almost all the way up to the top. You want to stop at about 5 millimeters. And when you see the coffee in the reservoir about to hit that little, there's a nub on the bottom. I'll show you when we come back out. There's a little nub in there. Once you see that, that's about a good time to stop pouring. You want it to come up a little bit past that, and in my experience, that's going to get you about 4 cups, which is what you want to see. You're going to let that go all the way down. And this is hopefully where we're going to see that really pretty stuff sticking right to the side of the filter, which is ideally what you want. Perfect. You can see up here, see these are no longer being exposed. They're no longer being exposed to water. and that's good. That's what you want. Excellent. Amazing. Cool. This is great. This is exactly what you want to see. You see everything sticking up alongside the edges. That's good news, bears. Now, once you start to see the drip at the bottom start to really slow, you've got this little baby trickle, maybe it's even drops, you're just about done. Awesome. Okay, so we're just about finished here. You should see just barely dripping down there in the bottom, and then you can go ahead and pick this up. There shouldn't be that much more coming out, just to hear it drip drop here and there. And then toss that sucker into the trash. Don't need it anymore. And you're going to want to go ahead and swish it around. This is going to aerate it. It's going to give you a really nice whiff. Again, just like the AeroPress, you don't want that acrid, bitter smell or flavor. This should be bright and like almost chocolatey depending on the coffee you've got. This is the same coffee I used for the AeroPress. Yeah, and it smells fantastic. It's got this really deep quality, which I really like. That's why I like this one for the price. Go ahead and pour some of that out. And again, like AeroPress coffee, you should be able to enjoy this without milk or sugar. But if you like milk or sugar, nothing's stopping you. It smells really good. So again, there's a lot of room for experimentation there. Everybody's got a method that they like. I like this method of just going around the edge and then getting that center part wet right at the very end. This will hold, like I said, this is a 6-cup Chemex, but it'll hold about 4 cups, so this is one of them. So that's kind of the way I do it. Hopefully once I get the Kone, I'll do another video for that and maybe do a taste test and comparison. But that's about it for now. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this has been informative. If I messed anything up, let me know in the comments. If you have something you think I did wrong, or if you have a way that you prefer to do it, or you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Until the next video, which I make, which who knows when that's going to be, I'm going to have this coffee and then pet my dog for a little while. Thanks for watching.